You know that feeling when everything around you still looks the same, but inside you're restless? The routines, the roles, the identities that used to fit now kind of feel tight, heavy, maybe even almost suffocating. And you start to wonder, did I take the wrong turn? Am I messing this up? Here's the truth. Don't mistake growth pains for being on the wrong path. What you're feeling might not be wrongness. It might just be your wings brushing up against the bars of a cage that you've outgrown. Welcome back to The Void and the Flame. I'm Rachel or Ray. Nobody special, just somebody who's been through some shit like most of you. This space isn't about polished answers. It's about the raw truth of what it means to live through the shadows and still find a way to carry the flame forward. As always, if anything in today's episode stirs up too much or feels overwhelming, please give yourself permission to pause. Step away, breathe, reach for someone you trust. Could be a therapist, a counselor, or even a friend who can hold space. Now, today's episode is called When You Outgrow the Cage, and it's about the pain of becoming. About those moments when life still looks the same on the outside, but inside, you know you can't stay who you were. It's the grief of shedding the old skins, the discomfort of growth, and the reminder that just because it hurts doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. Cages aren't always built out of steel. Sometimes they're built out of roles we accept, expectations we inherited, identities we thought we'd wear forever, sometimes even love. For me, that cage was being a caretaker. I was the one who held everything together, even when I was falling apart inside. I convinced myself that if I had just kept showing up for everybody else, eventually someone would show up for me. That was the bargain I made with the world. In one of my past relationships, that bargain looked like this. I was buying his groceries. I was cooking him full meals, driving them over and then dropping them off like some kind of delivery service. And he didn't have to ask twice because I thought that's what love looked like. I thought if I gave enough, maybe he'd finally see me. Maybe he'd finally give back. But he never did. He took everything I offered, every ounce of nurturing, every sacrifice, and he gave nothing in return. I thought I was dating a grown man, but turns out I had signed myself up for an unpaid internship as a mother. That's not romance. That's adoption paperwork. And unfortunately, it wasn't the first time I had adopted a grown man. It was a pattern I had to break because I kept letting myself believe that that was enough. That was my cage. Well, one of them, anyways. And it went even deeper than meals and errands. He had a desk that sat in a box for a month, unopened, unused. I wanted so badly to see him step back into the parts of himself that I had fallen in love with. The pieces I thought were still in there somewhere. So one night, I pulled the desk out of the box, laid out all the parts, and put it together myself. I told myself that if I take this one little step for him, maybe it'll spark something. Maybe it'll push him back into the passions and priorities that once mattered to him. Do you know how unsexy it is to be surrounded by Allen wrenches at 11 p.m., building a man's desk, praying that it sparks him back to life? Spoiler alert, IKEA furniture does not resurrect dead motivation. Because the truth was, I couldn't carry him back into himself. And every time I tried, I built the bars of my own cage a little higher. Looking back, the red flags were there pretty early. And in the beginning, I would listen to him complain about his exes, talk about other women he had dated, almost like I was his audience. I thought I was just being understanding, learning his story, getting to know him. But what I see now is that it wasn't intimacy, it was a warning, a sign that he was too buried in his own pain to even notice me outside of what I could do for him. And I ignored those signs because I wanted to believe that if I loved hard enough, it would all shift. Maybe you've been there too, where hindsight makes you wonder how you didn't see it sooner. But when you're inside the cage, it feels normal. It feels like love. It takes distance to realize that it was survival all along. I remember nights when I was bone tired, but I still stayed up to listen to someone else's problems, thinking maybe if I poured enough of myself out, they'd notice I was drowning too. They didn't. And every time I silenced my own needs, the bars of the cage closed in a little tighter. At one point, the role gave me purpose. It made me feel needed, but eventually, it started to suffocate me. Because the truth is, safety isn't the same as being alive. And here's the part I didn't understand back then. Stepping out of that cage didn't mean I had to stop being a caretaker completely. It meant I had to stop being a caretaker at my own expense. Now, I still carry that gift, but with discernment. I know when it's safe to step into that role without it draining me. And the night that I put that desk together, I sat there staring at it afterwards, and it hit me. I had built more of his life than he was even willing to touch. That's when the thought landed. If I keep this up, I'm going to lose myself completely. The cage taught me the cost of overgiving. Freedom taught me the power of choosing when to give. Kelly Clarkson is a good example of capturing that feeling when she's saying, "I'll spread my wings and I'll learn how to fly." That's what it feels like when you finally outgrow the cage. It's awkward, it's terrifying, but it's necessary. Growth means shedding skins that no longer fit. And for me, letting go of that caretaker role almost broke me. When I stopped showing up as the one who fixed everything, I didn't know who I was anymore. I had tied my identity so tightly to being the strong one, the reliable one, the rescuer, that without it, I kind of felt naked, even a little exposed. I didn't know how to just sit in silence without fixing something. I didn't know how to accept love without earning it. And honestly, I felt useless. Like I had no identity left. But I realized the role itself wasn't the enemy. It was my lack of choice. Cage forced me into overfunctioning. Growth gave me back my freedom to choose. One day I was fortunate enough to have somebody show up for me. It was small. A friend had dropped off dinner when I was exhausted and sick, no strings attached. And I remember standing in my kitchen, staring at that container of food and crying because it just felt so foreign to be cared for without having to earn it. That moment cracked something open in me. Maybe love doesn't have to cost me everything. But there was also plenty of times where I started noticing patterns. I had some people in my life who would constantly beat around the bush about needing help. Instead of asking, they'd hint, phrase things just right, hoping that I would jump in and offer. You know the type. "Wow, my fridge is empty. Sure would be nice if someone brought food." Buddy, I'm not DoorDash. Manipulation Olympics? Canceled. And to be fair, people hint because asking is vulnerable. But my pattern was jumping in, and my growth was learning to wait. Once I started to see it clearly, I realized this wasn't about me being loving. This was about them relying on my habit of overgiving. So I stopped offering. I let the silence hang instead of filling it with my energy. And I'll be honest, it felt very uncomfortable at first. And as somebody with a nasty guilt complex, that thing kicked in full force. But at the same time, it also felt freeing. It was proof I could choose differently, proof that I didn't have to be hooked into every unspoken request. There's grief in that kind of shift. Yes, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you there isn't. Grief for the old me who thought love had to be earned by pouring myself out. But there's also power in knowing that I can still be that caring presence when I choose, without sacrificing myself in the process. So if you're feeling the grief of outgrowing a version of yourself, you're not broken. You're not weak. You're just human. I want to reflect for a moment. What role do you feel like you are still playing that no longer fits who you're becoming? Write it down. Give it some thought later. See what might come up. You might be surprised at what your cage actually looks like. Now, we romanticize growth like it's this glamorous breakthrough moment. But the truth? Growth usually feels awful in the moment. It feels awkward. It feels like loneliness, doubt. It feels like your skin doesn't fit, like you're barefoot walking between two worlds, the one you've outgrown and the one you can't see clearly just yet. There were so many nights I thought maybe I should just go back. Maybe it's easier to stay small than to feel this lost. But that smallness was killing me. And it's so tempting to think that if it feels this bad, maybe I'm doing it wrong. But hear me again. Don't mistake growth pains for being on the wrong path. Now, here's where neuroscience can help us out. Your brain is constantly rewiring itself. It's called neuroplasticity. So when you step into new habits, new roles, new identities, your old neural pathways begin to weaken while those new ones start to form. That rewiring feels clumsy and uncomfortable because your brain is literally under construction. So it's not failure, it's just biology. Mumford and Sons once wrote, "I'll find my strength in pain and I will change my ways." That's the essence of growth. It hurts, but it's also proof that you're shifting, rewiring, changing. Think about a habit that you've been trying to break. Maybe biting your nails. Maybe apologizing when you don't need to. You feel that awkward tension when you try to do something different. That's not failure. That's your brain building new wiring. For me, one of the hardest habits to break was apologizing for things that weren't my fault. And at first, stopping felt rude, like unnatural. But eventually, it became second nature. That awkwardness was my brain rewiring. Muscles only strengthen by tearing a little. Roots only deepen by pushing through hard soil. And the brain? It only evolves when we're willing to feel the discomfort of building new wiring. Can you remember a time where something felt clumsy at first? Maybe it was learning to drive or trying something new at work, and then it just became second nature. That's how your brain works in growth too. Awkwardness is proof it's working. Grief isn't just about losing people we love. It's about losing selves that we've been. It's about setting down the armor that once carried us through. Your emotional brain, the limbic system, doesn't know the difference between losing a person or losing an identity. It still treats both as loss. That's why it can feel like heartbreak when you stop being the caretaker. When I stepped away from that role, I cried like I had lost somebody I loved. And in a way, I had. I lost the me who stayed small to keep everyone else safe. I remember sitting on the floor, tears soaking my shirt, realizing I wasn't crying over a person. I was crying over the version of me who thought she had to hold the world together. But here's the thing. Once you name that grief, your thinking brain, the prefrontal cortex, can then step in and help you integrate it. By putting words to the pain, you begin to calm the storm and begin bringing order to what feels like chaos. Florence and the Machine actually put it best when they said it's hard to dance with the devil on your back, so shake him off. Grief can feel like that devil, heavy, suffocating. But every time you allow yourself to feel it and release it, you shake off another weight that kept you caged. So let yourself grieve. Journal it. Speak it out loud. Create a ritual if you need to. Name the version of you that's gone. Thank them, and then let them rest. Here's a little reflection. Who is a version of you that you've had to say goodbye to? Can you name them? Can you thank them for carrying you this far? If you want, you can even light a candle for that version of you. Whisper their name, thank them, and then let the flame hold that memory so you can keep moving forward. You might even write a letter to that version of yourself and burn it in that flame. Or if candles aren't your thing, you could always put an object on the shelf as a symbol of what you're letting rest. So here's something you can try with me right now. If you're not driving or actively involved in something, grab a pen, grab some paper. Write down the role that you've been stuck in. Maybe it's caretaker, maybe it's fixer, maybe it's the strong one. You can use just one word or one sentence. Look at it on the page. See the weight of it in ink. Now cross it out. Literally draw a line through it. That's the first crack in the cage. That's proof you don't have to carry it anymore. You could even write yourself a whole letter. If you want, I'll even give you an example of what that could sound like. I'll share with you a letter that I once wrote to myself. Dear me, I am so sorry I asked you to keep carrying everyone else's weight while ignoring your own. I see now how tired you were. See how hard you tried to keep everyone else afloat, even as you were sinking. And I want you to know, you don't have to do that anymore. You deserve care too. You deserve rest. You deserve to be free. That's all a letter needs to be, really. Raw, messy, honest. Yours might look different. Maybe it's angry. Maybe it's tender. There is no wrong way. The point isn't perfection. The point is release, because every goodbye makes space for rebirth. And here's another truth about growth. You can't bypass your feelings. I see so many people trying to numb out, shut down, or convince themselves they shouldn't feel what they feel because the world doesn't care. But who gives a damn about what the world cares about in this moment? Because this isn't about the world. This is about you. And it all starts and ends with you. For me, sometimes bypassing looked like scrolling for hours or pretending I was fine. And I still do these things, don't let me kid you. And even telling myself I was too busy to cry. And now I cry all the time. Not even ashamed to admit it. I cry a lot these days. But the feelings always found their way out later. Anything that I was trying to bury always found its way out later. And it usually found its way out even louder than it was before. So when you ignore your feelings, they don't disappear. They just bury themselves deeper. They show up later as anxiety, anger, burnout, or even self-sabotage. And usually when they show up later, they're worse than they were before. Neuroscience even backs this. Emotions are signals in the body that need to be processed, not suppressed. Ignoring them doesn't make them go away. It just keeps your nervous system stuck in a loop. Here's something you could try right now. I want you to go ahead and put one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly. Now I want you to take a slow inhale through your nose for 4 seconds. And then hold it for 7. And then exhale gently through your mouth for 8. Do that 3 times. Notice how your body softens when you actually give it space. And if you really want to take it even one step further, try shaking out your arms, rolling your shoulders, or even standing up and stomping your feet. Yes, you may look ridiculous, but honestly, if Florence and the Machine can shake it out on stage in a dramatic cape, you can definitely shake it out in your living room in sweatpants. Sometimes your body needs that literal release. Swifties, you know the power of a full body shake. So, the most radical act of growth isn't pretending you're fine, it's allowing yourself to feel even the grief, even the rage, even the loneliness, because that's how your brain and your body integrate the new wiring. Feeling your feelings isn't weakness. It's what makes the transformation real, and the strength you gain from that is pretty life-changing. So if it hurts right now, it doesn't mean you're failing. It doesn't mean you're lost. It means your wings are brushing against the bars. It means you're pressing against limits that were never meant to hold you forever. Outgrowing the cage is not betrayal. It's becoming. Like Joni Mitchell once sang, I've looked at life from both sides now. Growth gives us that, the ability to see who we were and who we're becoming, to honor both and to get to keep expanding. I want you to take a moment right now. What bars are your wings brushing against? Can you name them? Because naming them is the first step to breaking them. So this week isn't about burning down the whole cage in one dramatic movie scene. Maybe it's just about noticing when you're acting like someone's unpaid mom rather than their partner and saying, nope, not today. These wings were not made for babysitting. You are not wrong for changing. You are not broken for grieving. You are simply expanding into who you always were. This week, I want you to notice one place in your life where you feel the squeeze of that cage. Write down what freedom would look like on the other side, what it would feel like on the other side of that cage. And if you can, right now, spread your arms wide, just like wings. Feel your chest open. That's what freedom is meant to feel like in your body. Here's a journal prompt for you for the week. Write down one cage you've outgrown and one you're still pressing against. Read it out loud to yourself. Claim your freedom before anyone else does. And remember, don't mistake growth pain for being on the wrong path. Your wings were always meant for the sky. I will meet you out there. Thank you for being here with me today, for listening, and for walking this path alongside me. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who might be feeling that squeeze of their own cage. And if you want to keep traveling through the void and the flame with me, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next step of this journey. And as always, if you want to connect or share your story, my DMs are open on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. All the details are in the show notes. And until next time, notice where your wings are brushing against the bars. Remember that discomfort doesn't mean you're wrong, it means you're growing. You don't have to abandon the parts of you that care for others, but you do get to choose when and how you give, so you can stay full instead of empty. And if any part of you feels unseen or trapped in a space too small for who you're becoming, know this: you are not alone. Growth can feel isolating, but there are others out here breaking cages too. You are seen, You are heard and you are loved. And when the time is right, you can step into your sky at your own pace and in your own way. Always remember, you don't have to keep the fire lit alone.